Folks, this is the first time I've given a lecture here in the United States in probably 9 years. A lot of what you're going to see here today is a first-time release worldwide of Technologies and Secrets. It is time, and so I am going to teach you some things here on this board about the cover-up that has been mentioned before in some of the lectures, about the alien cover-up and about some of our own human-based programs to make anti-gravity and various other technologies. I don't want this to be a dull and boring lecture, and the opening montage you saw covers scenes from everything we're going to try to squeeze into an hour. If it goes over your head or you forget things, don't worry. They're recording it on a DVD, and I planned on this. What we're presenting here is going to go far and wide, not just here in Roswell. It's the beginning of an unveiling. You saw the blue and red satin magician's cape. We're pulling the lid off of a number of things today. I didn't even tell Guy, organizing this, what exactly we were going to do because I didn't want it to leak out anywhere. In this country, in the the late parts of World War II, about 1943, there were a number of programs other than the Manhattan Project that were started to develop weapons to defeat Germany. We knew at that time that Germany was going to try to get an atomic bomb, and certainly the effort was thwarted. But there were other projects. Dr. Edward Teller, the kind of alleged father of the hydrogen bomb project, recruited myself and a number of other people from the mid-50s forward until 1971. I was recruited in 71, a latecomer to the program. But back in those early days, there was a real problem with removing the blinders off of scientists to develop new weapons and new defensive mechanisms as well. So in 1943, the men developing this project tried to figure out a way to convince scientists that certain things like anti-gravity, new types of weapons were possible, to remove the blinders. So by 1952 they had already started what I'm going to show you here, but this is where it happened. Can you hear me? Is this mic on here? Only for the video. Sorry, folks. All right, I will project without popping my peas. Thank you.
We hope so.
All right. In 1947, Jesse Marcel was heavily ridiculed over the release of the information that we had a flying saucer down. I must tell you that they were Air Force officers. They were officers of the 509th Bomb Wing, and these are the guys that did the atomic bomb testing. They weren't stupid. They knew the difference between a kite and pieces of metal and bodies and things that were real. It wasn't crash dummies. It wasn't alfoil and Scotch tape and balsa wood. He was duped into setting up for that photo there in Fort Worth. Now, he took a lot of flack. His son defends him today. But this is where it started here at Roswell Army Airfield, 1947.
That a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Little time warp sound effects there. Now, you've all heard of Jesse Marcel, but you would not have heard of Colonel Harrison there. Let's see if I can get back to him. Yeah, all right. I've got a twitchy finger on this thing here. Let me just get in there. Okay. Now, Colonel Harrison died in 2003 now. He lived in Fort Worth. He was the next door neighbor of an acquaintance of Holly mine who works for Lockheed. Colonel Harrison was a co-pilot on the first atomic bomb test dropped in Bikini Atoll. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross. He was a lifelong friend, as you can see here, of from the wartime days till he died, of the McCain family, Senator McCain and Admiral McCain. He also served as a special assistant to Admiral McCain at a very top-level security position. He's one of the guys that was truly a secret keeper, and he did it even from his son until the day that he died. As it turns out, Colonel Harrison was outside the back of his apartment, slipped and fell and hurt his head to the point that it was a cerebral hemorrhage. They took him to the hospital, and he lingered for a while, and his son was in there with him just before his dad died, and he said, "Dad, I've got to know, were the aliens real?" Because this guy was here at Roswell, and a number of paper trails led to his plane ID for having ferried parts back to Fort Worth and over to Wright Pat. And he turned to his son and he said, "All I will say is that they were real." And he died a few minutes later. So, you have another witness, hearsay, but one of the kind that really counts because he was a very special fella. He flew the B-47s, the early Strategic Air Command, and he also commanded a B-52 Air Wing under Curtis LeMay in the SAC program after that. 509th there was the start of that. And there's his Distinguished Flying Cross. Now, this is Raymond F. Jones. Who's Raymond F. Jones? This Island Earth, one of the two probably classic Hollywood productions about alien invasions of Earth in the 50s, the other being The Forbidden Planet. Raymond Jones wrote this and 74 other stories. Raymond was a Mormon and an avid imagination, but he also ran in some very interesting circles. And so after he had started and finished this particular book, which became the movie, he wrote a short story called Noise Level for this magazine, 1952. I came across the story in 1977 in this reprint done in England. I'm going to tell you a short précis of this story because it's going to probably answer a number of things for you eventually. In the story that Raymond wrote, Noise Level, there's a meeting called in the Pentagon. The chiefs of staff all come to the meeting, and there's a president's representative there, and there's this big table. In the middle of the table, there's this plastic-wrapped bunch of burned junk. And it was sealed up, airtight, tied off anyway. And the president's aide tells the assembled scientists and professors who've been called in from all the United States and the generals, he said, "Look, I know you're not going to believe what we're about to tell you, but something extraordinary happened last week, and we need your help to solve the mystery." He said, "We have some of it on film. We were testing this young fellow's device. He's kind of a smart aleck, but we were testing it last week with him, and here's the film we took." And so they opened up the curtain, and the film starts. And you see this young, kind of red-haired, freckle-faced scientist-looking smart aleck, really a bright genius type. And he's got this little chest pack and a backpack and a little belt, and he's standing in front of some of the generals there in a football stadium. And he reaches down, he pushes a button, and he lifts up off the deck 2 or 3 feet and just stands there in the air. Nobody says a word in the office there in the Pentagon. They're thinking, wow. Okay, so he's been lifted up a bit. Then he pushes another button, and he rotates sideways and lifts up about 40 feet and takes off, flies around the football field and comes back around for a low pass over the generals. Everybody ducks, and there's a puff of smoke. Quick explosion. He nosedives into the deck and dies. A ball of flame. The package on the table holds the remains of the guy's instrument. What's left after the fire melted everything together. He said, "Gentlemen, he died before he told us how he did it. This guy doesn't work for any government. He's just an individual. He doesn't have any university grants. He's just an individual, and he did this. Now, you've got to figure out how he did it. We've got his apartment. We've got his library. We've got his lab. We've got everything. You go and take his notes apart and figure out how he did this." Wow. Wow. Everybody runs over a big gaggle to this guy's apartment. They look through his library. He's got chemistry here, physics here, philosophy, ancient mysticism, everything. And he's got a lathe room and downstairs in the second floor area here. And then he's got over here, he's got biochemistry and all kinds of stuff. And they said, could one guy have read all of this? And they start looking through some of the volumes, and there's notes, annotations in the margin. Well, where are his other notes? Couldn't find them.